I have a chapter about the Trump administration, for example, but goes into who has been working with Donald Trump in the background, because a lot of people think that he's a savior. He's going to
Mm.
save us.
I got with Dr. Jakob Nordengard for the fourth or fifth time now, but this time is special because his new book in English is now out, and it's The Global Coup d'etat. And it's an absolutely incredible, kind of fairly concise summary of all that's happened and why it's happening and what's happening going forward. So it's the ultimate book, I think, the best on the market out there to explain cerveza sickness, all the WHO, the regulations, the insanity, the hate speech laws. Everything is explained, who's doing it, where it's coming from, where they want to go. So you will be armed by getting this book and by looking at this interview with all of the facts and data fully published, right? No crazy kind of conspiracy theory stuff. So it's an amazing conversation. We go through controlled opposition actually quite a lot, and that was not planned. So Trump, the election cycle, Elon Musk, all of that stuff, who's on our side and who's not. So information packed discussion, always fantastic with Dr. Jakob Nordengard. So watch, get the book, and enjoy.
So great to see you again, Jakob.
Yeah, thank you for having me again. Yeah, it's
Oh,
great to
no.
talk to you always.
It's superb. And back in 22, I discovered you and I went to Sweden, to Stockholm, to do that interview, the big one. And I think since then, you've been all over the platforms. You got a new publisher. The message is really getting out. So I think there's a message of hope as well. I gave a few shows in the UK using your material primarily. So thank you for that. And I put in a message of hope, all the positive stuff that's happening all over the world, the organizations rising up, the Japanese massive demonstration against the World Health regulations. And it goes on and on and on. The awareness is getting out there. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. That's what I feel myself. And I just talked to the Danish freedom movement an hour ago, and had a meeting with the Swedish, and we have interviews uh, almost every day now. So it's a lot of thing happening, a lot of people that understand what's going on. So yeah, I'm quite positive.
Excellent. And even as long as a year ago, you were extremely positive, but it's gotten better since then.
Yeah, I know. And it was like you looked at me, what? How can you be that positive?
Well,
But it's
a
just,
year.
yeah, I can just feel it, that it was coming, something. Yeah.
Yeah, no, very accurate you were. And I'm a real corporate kind of guy, and I'm really cynical and I hedge a lot. And back then I thought there were very positive signs. You were a little ahead of me, but now I'm seeing it. The awakening is flourishing. So, we'll talk at the end of this short interview on some of that positive stuff, but I think we'll get straight into the reality. So your books are all about the reality of who and what is being done to us. And that's crucial to get the awakening. So maybe your new book, I'm not sure, is it actually available in English yet or soon?
It will be the October the 15th.
Great. I might even release when it's actually out. So you may be watching this, folks, on October 15th. So Global Coup d'etat. So maybe if you could parse it out, the key points through the narrative of this new book, and what it's really telling us. All fully referenced, all from published literature, publications, Rockefeller archives. That's really important that people understand. Everything we say, fully published, zero conspiracy theory.
I can just tell you the background to the book, because this book was actually published in Swedish first in December 2020. And then I have added new information in the book. Uh, but it's essentially about what happened with the pandemic, uh, COVID being the triggering event to start this process of rolling out the technological surveillance machinery. And and this was kind of obvious for me what actually happened, because I had released or published the Rockefeller book 1 year before in Swedish, April 2019. And then the pandemic happened. I knew this is the trigger. This is how they are rolling out all this agenda. So in the book, I outline. I have the first chapter is about the vision, and it's the story of influential players behind this. I go back in history and tell the story. Who are the founders of the League of Nations and the United Nations? And I discuss also the background to the World Economic Forum and how they have signed a partnership, and how they have been working to make the agenda, and how they have worked with making leaders to push the agenda, and all the subgroupings in the World Economic Forum network, and how they operate. I have also discuss the methodology, how they are achieving this through the use of global crisis, global threats. And so I have a chapter that's all about this crisis. But also the modern players, what I refer to the club, the philanthropies. Who are they? What areas do they operate in? And what methodology do they use? And also other kind of strategies that is used. I go into the resistance, the opposition, and how these powerful networks and groups try to control and influence the opposition and the resistance. I have a chapter about the Trump administration, for example, but goes into who has been working with Donald Trump in the background, because a lot of people think that he's a savior. He's going to save us. But as I outline, he has very, very disturbing connections to the global elites, the very ones that he claims to be opposing.
Yeah, and that is very topical. If I release this on October 15th, we're coming right up in the election. Now, just on the Trump thing, as a matter of interest, I notice when any guests criticize Trump, I get a lot of blowback. And that's understandable, because people, quite frankly, Jakob, they need a savior, or they feel they need one. My thoughts on Trump, briefly, it's kind of a lesser of evils. I think he's a bit like Musk, that he's all connected and you can't really trust anyone at that level. But deep down, maybe he has a slight feeling of he doesn't want the world to become a total dystopia, perhaps. He'd like it to just be a playground for the rich without all the crazy extra madness that you've spoken about in your books. And I saw him in a video clip. I get your opinion of this. And I thought it was revealing. It was a few years ago in World Economic Forum, and Trump was walking out of the forum, and Klaus Schwab was flitting around him like a little girl. I was fascinated to see how big Trump was, how small Schwab was, because Schwab is usually up there on the big podium. And I just noticed something that as Trump was saying to the press that were all lined up at the railing, he was saying, we're not doing this globalist thing, you know, we're going to make America great, and all his usual patter. Schwab was running around him, clearly nervously, clearly unhinged a little, unsettled. He didn't feign that. Schwab was uncomfortable with this man. It was almost like Schwab was, by his behaviour, it made it look like Trump really is a pain in the ass for them at some level. You know, and there's some other signs that Trump may not be as bad as the alternative, which is totally nuts.
Well, it's like Trump is a loose cannon. He could say whatever, and he probably makes some people nervous because you never know what will come out of him. Uh, but for one example, um, one of his main financiers and that helped him with his team during the his presidency, 2016 to uh, 2017 to 21, was Peter Thiel. And Peter
Yeah.
Thiel put his closest men in the administration. And one of them, Peter Thiel, he's a World Economic Forum young global leader. And he put a technology advisor, the technology czar in the Trump administration was a guy called Michael Kratsios. He's also a young global leader. He was in the same class as Alicia Garcia from Black Lives Matters. Uh,
Ah,
so,
and you know,
and they continued the same technology policy like Obama administration. They stated that. I would say that the Trump administration, I mean, they are the right boot. They have this. We want to secure the borders, but we need surveillance. We need the technology to do it. So I think this. It's the same with now in Sweden. We have a government that's run by the so-called conservatives, and they now say that. We're going to use the surveillance technology to save us from the criminal networks.
yeah.
Yeah, the thing is that when we had a conservative government in Sweden the last time, we had a prime minister that said we have to open our hearts. We have to let in all these people of humanitarian reasons, and they
Ah,
flooded the country. And the government after that, the Social Democrats, that usually is those with an open heart, said, no, we have to block the borders. and
yeah.
then we had a problem. And then the prime minister of a new conservative government said, oh, now you have to have these surveillance cameras everywhere. In order and this visitation zones, and so it's a lot of things that they push through, and people just, oh, finally we have waited for the surveillance state, finally it's coming. And so that's what I see with this. It's how we use this populist rhetoric and it's come up with solutions. And the other side, the left, they want to surveil because of the planet and future generations and carbon and everything. So it's essentially the same in the end.
It,
And one thing that I think Patrick Wood has talked about it with the Trump administration and the populist movement, but the populists don't have they don't have, they just sell in these ideas, but they don't have the means to implement it. So they hire the technocrats. It's what he refers to technopopulism, and we can find it. Peter Thiel is that guy.
Yeah.
He is a technocrat. He loves surveillance. He sells surveillance technologies to the intelligence services in United States and Israel. They actually used, I mean, he is the head of, or he was the founder of Palantir, and they use that technology to hunt down Hamas supporters with, I mean, screening of information, social media and everything, and profiling people. And then you just can send your drone and shoot that person. Uh, that's not very nice. And and also Elon Musk, on the other hand, that's now supporting Trump. Okay, he says a lot of good things about freedom of speech and so on, but he is the one behind Neuralink and Starlink and all these systems that is a part of the global digital dictatorship in the end. It's
Yep.
those systems. So I wouldn't trust these people. You have to you can say good things, but you have to show that you really mean it. With if Elon Musk was a good guy, a savior, I think he should. Okay, I don't like this business with Neuralink. That's not good. That's not good for humanity. I quit this. I quit this job.
Yeah. Now that's no, that is absolutely, I agree with all that for sure, Jakob. And I think Trump and Musk and all, they are profiting from the system. And the system, you know, financially, revenue wise, technologies, we're in that kind of world where there's oodles of money. I mean, if you take Musk, for instance, I'm guessing he knows that the nice weather crisis, which I call it now for YouTube, the nice weather crisis, right? And it works. He must know that that's absolute nonsense, right? Because he'll be fed all the information about what's going on in the world, and he would have come across your material or similar like it. He must know that. But he's making huge profit, and it gives him his power to be selling e-vehicles on the back of the nonsense. So it's almost like they're all compromised. They have to be in to be wealthy and be increasing revenue and have this power. But I think they have some misgivings about where the world's going. So they complain a little and they push back a little. I wonder, are they really total scumbags who are controlled opposition, absolutely carrying out their role fully with the despots, right, that we talk about? Or are they going along to get along, but chipping at the worst excesses of what is being planned and feeling that they're doing something good by opposing it? I wonder how compromised they are, totally or just partially. And you know, on Young Global Leaders, you were the one who brought to my attention, there's 4,000 of those guys since 1993. So to be honest, chances are anyone who appears to be not as bad, or what, you know, a lot of high up people are going to be young global leaders somewhere in the last 30 years, and maybe then now they're not quite so bad. I mean, the best example, I think, who was thrown out of the process was Professor, I'm going to have to edit this, Werner. Professor Richard Werner. He was actually excommunicated. So we know he's truly against the system, and he's had countless attacks. So he's validated. But I wonder how many of the others have misgivings and they're kind of pushing back without actually getting excommunicated or thrown out. It's a tricky question, isn't it?
Well, I think if Elon Musk was true opposition, he would be out of business now.
Yeah, well, there is that.
I think he's a poster guy who is giving him the contracts to the business with Starlink and this is defense contracts. This is the big state behind him. He couldn't do this without that support. It's
Yeah.
like stupid. I mean, who is he? How can you build space technology? It's so I think it's just a poster guy. It's someone that you put there, and he can say all these things, and because they need to give us saviors, they need to give us hope, they need to give us
Mm,
people that we can feel like we can trust. But in the end, we will go in a direction that leads directly to the opposing side, and that's one of the things I write in my book. That a lot of the opposition and resistance to what happened since 2020 has been that a lot of people that has been in the spotlight as opposition, they are for example been very into world federalism
mm.
and those kind of solutions. It's and so it's like and I always get suspicious when there are people that have uh, a huge following coming from nowhere and just get it's just a boom and who is this guy? Uh, and
I, I,
yeah.
I have come across some of those, Jakob. One in Ireland just appeared out of nowhere. Can't find any history. This is 2, 3 years ago. An English guy, and he was suddenly running a freedom movement. And it turned out a guy I know went and found out his address, and it was an apartment that was clearly not lived in, funded by an NGO, one of the bad NGOs. And like it was comical. He was just drawing in resistance people into a club, talking the talk, and probably feeding on all their information. So that certainly happens. I think just to close the controlled opposition side of the conversation, I think what Musk is doing with free speech and Twitter, it would be genius if he was total controlled opposition and yet he's opposing the free speech and the trans madness. It gives him huge credibility, but also Twitter is getting out freely an absolute torrent of facts and truth that would otherwise be censored. So it's a pretty big price to pay for the bad guys to give Elon credibility, and the price they pay for that credibility as controlled opposition is to let out an enormous amount of damaging kind of facts against their plans. It's really razor's edge stuff, isn't it? Because Twitter is a big problem for them. And it is a big bonus for us. I mean, that's just reality at the moment. It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, man, it's an interesting game because it shows also that they have created this internet for us, and they have given us incentives to use it. That we can share information with each other, uh, but they wanted to this to in the end control us. So but so this the system for control now is used for uh, informing people. So it's a very tricky time for them, and they have so that's one of the things with the Pact for the Future, for example, United Nations, that they talk a lot about how can we solve this problem with information, disinformation and misinformation and hate speech and so on, uh, because they have problem with it,
Yeah.
of
They,
course. And
they
I think but and it's like they also okay, we have to give us this uh, people like Elon Musk and so on, and but I think in their thinking it's then we can blame him or those people for something bad. That means we have to, in the end, have these regulations, something. But at the same time, I think it's very, very hard to uh, contain this at this moment because it's
It,
like it's leakages everywhere. It's and also the knowledge. So many people know, and some people don't want to know, but they have heard other people talking about it. So it's in the back head, and then something will happen, like a big crisis. More people will, okay, they will know where to find material. They will know, okay, I didn't believe this crazy guy, but now it's now I will look up this because strange things are happening.
yeah,
So it will be it's very harder and harder for this controlling side, this tyrannical overlords to actually uh, make this prison work in the end. And it's like they have, during a long period of time, uh, it has been quite easy for them because few people have known. They have taken it step by step by step, and legislation followed by new legislation, and it's the Fabian methodology. Uh, but now we are in the last hour, and so and it started with the pandemic. With they really wanted to push these things through. They wanted to, now people are scared. We can just throw everything in. We can start a policy process with changing United Nations into this new uh, supranational governing body that will function like a world government. But that is the last step. It's the most difficult because that's makes it's like everything is out in the open.
yeah.
We can't hide
That
it anymore.
that is exactly it, Jakob. They did a beautiful job of boiling frog for decades, but it was the easy portion of the program because no one really knew about it. It was all under wraps, behind the scenes. The media were funded to just not talk about it, and they did a great job. But now, as they get post the trigger of the cerveza sickness madness in 2020, they've triggered. So now it's all duck or no dinner. You got to race to the finish quickly before people start talking. And that's where they are. And that's where they're most exposed. That's where their white underbelly is exposed to our knives. It makes it the most fascinating time to be alive, and it's all to play for. But yeah, their cards are now steadily being shown to everyone. And that's why I, like yourself, have huge hope. I don't think they can really pull it off. It's just once awareness grows, everything will be mistrusted. You know, like the Marburg recently came out, and people are all telling me, oh, Marburg. And I say, relax, guys. Their Marburg, their Mpox, their moneypox, that viral nonsense no longer works, right? They've shot their bolt. They got their cerveza. It worked fantastic on an unsuspecting, naive population. But now they can't use viral nonsense. It just won't work. Maybe in 7 or 8 years they can use it again because the goldfish will have gone round the bowl, the human goldfish, but not now. So now it'll be financial crisis. We need a CBDC to save Granny's checkbook. Or it'll be war, right? They love war. So Middle East is heating up. But you know, exactly, it's much more in the open. And we might circle back now again, though, to the Global Coup d'etat, the book, and some more little priceless nuggets from that.
Yes, one of these things. I mean, I discuss this with war because war is it was stated already in the early 20th century by Carnegie Endowment when we had the first meetings. They discussed how to change a society, and they asked themselves, how is the can we change a society in a better way when we war? And they concluded, no, they couldn't. So they had to bring America into the war. And at that time, they had no war. It was some years after the First World War, but they worked for it, and they also said that we have to control the Foreign Office, and they started these think tanks that we still have and operates to set the policies in international relations. So and I see it with
And
yeah.
actually, yeah, it just occurs to me. I interviewed Gerald Celente, the New Yorker who runs Trends Journal. Great guy, very passionate, very popular interview. But he told me something I didn't know, and I consider myself a World War II buff. Mostly the European campaigns, but also Pacific and the Japanese. And I didn't realize that America shut down Japan before Pearl Harbor. Months and months. They shut down around 80 to 85% of their oil supply. They don't have their own oil. And they were literally crushing them with sanctions. And that really was what drove the Japanese to that heinous kind of Pearl Harbor thing. But in every coverage I've watched for a decade on that theatre of war, it is never mentioned that America crushed them first and literally were squeezing the lifeblood out of the country, and then they did that thing. No one mentions that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why the one who win the wars write the history. So
Yeah.
that's why you don't know it, of course. Uh, but back to the book. Uh, I also this I discuss with crisis and war, of course, and this crisis creates profits for all these players, of course, and uh, the thing with COVID that was that we paid for it. So I have a chapter called The Robbery, about how they think all the time, because this is a public-private partnership on a global level. And it's their methodology always to create this crisis and come up with solutions and get us to pay for it. Rob us all again and again and again and again. And the thing is, I think it's like they know, but eventually we would catch up with uh, this business model and understand, and that's why they have this technocratic vision for the world, a new economic system built on technocratic management and credits, energy credits, and a system run by them to control these people that has begun to understand things. So this is the grand solutions with all people that are waking up to
Yeah.
put us in these prisons, because in the end we will find out. So how do we do it? I don't know if I discussed this with you when we had the interview in Stockholm with Ivor Lee that said people will find out in the end. So you have to tell the truth. And they said, they thought, okay, then we have to control what's truth. but in the end, it's like they have bought themselves time. That's what they're doing with this system. They're buying themselves time, but it will come out. It can't be stopped. The truth is impossible to stop. It's a natural law. Uh, you can't do it. It's like trying to control water, like you have a big dam, and trying to, but you can't block it all the time. The water wants to come to the ocean,
Mm.
and that's the thing with truth. It wants to come out to the ocean, all the people. So it's impossible.
So that is the race for censorship, misinformation, disinformation. And when I showed your slide from the UN that they came out with a new initiative, misinformation, disinformation, but it's a Venn diagram and there's a third circle. And I said from the old, I think, children's program, one of these things is not like the other. Spot the odd one out. Misinformation, disinformation, and hate speech. Hold on. How is that in there? Because that's different. But they shoehorned it in there because they need something to sell it. And people are suspicious of clamping down on so-called misinformation, disinformation because of free speech. So they put in hate speech because a lot of people will say, well, yeah, I don't like hate speech. So it gets a little bit of support. It's like a little fig leaf put over their evil. But yeah, they're in a race for censorship. And I often mention to people Tiananmen Square. So the Chinese had a very, very tight ship, a great ant farm. Everyone was under control, pretty solid. And Tiananmen Square gave them a shock. And they realized, whoa, we're not as solid in controlling the ant farm as we surmised. And after that, they brought in a zillion cameras and technocratic control everywhere and social credit. So to be fair, this model can work because China have managed to make it work for decades. And that's why I always say to people, you've really got to get active now, because if you let them continue and they do get a lockdown with mass surveillance and technology and CBDC, which will censor you before you even move because suddenly your bank account won't work and you won't even know who to ask about it. We got to be careful. If they do get to the end game and they do deploy all the technology, we will have a big problem. But luckily, we've got the coming years to head them off at the pass. I think that's what it's all about, really.
Yes, it is. I think they want to push this through. I think they will do whatever they can. I think we could see we have a potential world war, and we are in the midst of a world war because it's a war against us, against humanity. But all that they are doing with the war will also expose a lot with and awaken a lot of more people. So and they might finish this system because it's like they have to. They have been working on it for so long, but it won't work more. It will. It's like when you're building an empire. It's easy in the beginning. You can move fast. You can take province after province. You can take the returns from those, and then you have expanded as much as you can. Then the difficult part comes. Now you have to control this from it's easy when you always have an enemy outside to defend yourself, and you can get the people to act and be behind your decisions. But when you have this global system, it will start to collapse right after they have put the last piece in the machine.
I love that. And you know what? The Chinese example, they have a relative advantage that they are actually quite insular. They do not go out to get a world empire. yes, they influence America and they influence many countries in their own interests, but they are not land grabbers. They are not trying to get and own the world, because they actually like to own their own ant farm and keep it really solid, which is a clever strategy. Don't try and expand and get bigger and bigger. You'll end up like the Roman Empire or what you describe for these globalist nut jobs, right? So the Chinese are just keeping it at home. And under those conditions, you can maybe successfully for a long time run an ant farm with technology. But these guys are trying to get all countries in, all cultures, all peoples. And that's where it's going to just, exactly like you say, it cannot be maintained. Entropy. It will start pushing out, like when you squeeze a balloon, it'll start popping out all over the place. Your middle management, your puppeticians, and your global leaders you're using to keep a cap on this nuclear reactor, at some point it'll start popping out here and there. People will turncoat. People will, I think it's even happening now that some of these puppeticians are getting a lot of heat from their relations and friends and are beginning to back off on some of this shit and begin to think, hold on, where is this going? It becomes unwieldy. And then when it begins to shake and wobble because of its own enormous weight, you then get the collapse. But if they do get it into the end game, we'll have to go through quite a nasty period of years before that happens. So it's really motivating to people watching to do everything you can now to stop them, because it's going to get really messy if they get a lot of this crap in, right?
Yeah, and build local networks. But it's as we started with, it's a lot of things happening. It's a lot of things happening with people coming together all the time now. And I think that's the natural order. We have this power. We have everything around us. We live in a fantastic world on a fantastic planet, and we get inspiration. We have intuition. We have a lot of all of things that uh, uh, but also makes us come in contact with each other. It's a force that is awakening within us, and I usually say this if we as humans are threatened, it will awaken us. It's just natural. It's like a program,
Yeah. A
but it's
program.
like a program by something that is much bigger than ourselves. Not an AI, not an algorithm, no, not that shit. The real thing, and the
Yeah.
real thing is what's going to save us. Not Donald Trump, not Elon Musk. The real thing, and we together will do it, and I think that's wonderful.
Excellent. The Lord helps those who help themselves. So we will ultimately have to save ourselves. And you know, it's so frustrating to see a significant proportion of Homo sapiens, my species, right, actually running with the nonsense they're fed by these technocrats. It sometimes makes me just feel like screaming. But the sizable minority that's growing of the lions and the wolves and the leaders who will take back our world, I think that's unstoppable. No matter what nonsense technology and AI BS you throw at it. So that's a really positive message to end on and keep this interview nice and tight, except for anything else you'd like to say about the book, because it sounds like, Jakob, you've done so many superb books with extensive history, like Rockefeller Controlling the Game. It sounds like this one is almost pulling a lot of things together into one volume to really explain the whole picture to the reader. Is it kind of really going to be a real reference work in a sense?
Yes, it is, and this is a work that in the Rockefeller book I was very into to analyzing that family and that philanthropies, and as they are an example of one of the most influential players, of course. But now I have it in a more broad context with uh, who, what kind of context were they in? Who are the ones that we are working with? What is the ideology that they come from? And so that's what I cover in this book, with the history, the vision, and the ideas, especially from Cecil Rhodes, and take control over the globe and all the resources, and how these ideas has been the have been what do you say,
The motivation
motivation for the round table movement, and these groups with Council on Foreign Relations, Chatham House, etc. So it comes out of British imperialism, all these ideas.
Yeah. And these
But
people, I mean,
that empire that failed, and their new empire will fail as well.
absolutely. And I often say to people, and in the UK, when I was going through your material, I say, look, you got to view these so-called elites as kind of ticks or parasites that are feeding off humanity, want to take everything for themselves. There's an absolute stink of sociopathy off them, but many of them are not sociopaths. They're just greedy, power-hungry people, which is not uncommon in humanity. And I often say as well, just a simple thing, there's only two real drivers for bad people who end up doing bad things to their own species. There's money and power. And when they get endless amounts of money, because they are quite driven, these people, they have a lust for money and power. When they get infinite money, like Rockefeller or Gates or many other examples, what's left to give you this thrill, this buzz, this meaning to life? And what they invariably switch towards is power. They want dominion over their species, like Rhodes, like everyone you mentioned. They want to run the show. They want to have dominion, I think, is the way I put it, over their species. Because that's the only thing that's going to give a buzz, is a feeling of eliteness, a feeling of being in a club with other elites like you, black, white, any color, any nationality, doesn't matter. They see other elite, wealthy people with similar motivations as their kinsmen. They don't care about their own nationality, their own people, even their own race. They want to be in a country of people like them who will rule over the world. Isn't that kind of what's driving them?
Playing God. They want to be God.
Yeah.
And that's what this technological system is about. The AI God that will govern you all the time, everything you do. And that's really playing God. And it won't work. It's just hubris. It's very hubris. It's megalomaniac.
Yeah. They're in an enormous circle jerk around all of this dizzying technology, and it's getting their power hungry kind of buttons or G-spots really humming. But it's going to fail. They're going to overextend themselves. So, super positive note to end on, Jakob. Let's circle back in a short while. I'll release this on the 15th because I should release it when the book is available in English, most of my audience. And guys, go out and get the book, but more importantly, share the link to the book and start getting it to friends who are not quite fully there yet. It's fully referenced, it's historical, it's zero smell of conspiracy theory, so it's perfectly safe to use this book with normies. Don't tell them about 5G. God help us, don't talk about chemtrails. Stay away from that stuff. It just turns people off, makes people think you're crazy. Stick to history, published, documented, referenced reality of geopolitical stuff in the world that's going to try and destroy our future. Stay with it, guys. Get the global coup d'etat, right, Jakob?
Yes, absolutely.
Good man. We will talk soon. Thank you so much.
We will. Yeah.
Bye now.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, that'll do it, folks. Hope you enjoyed that conversation. And of course, huge thanks as always to my PayPal and my Patreon subscribers. And the links are down below for if you can help out with our mission to get real news, real journalism, real technical analysis out there. And of course, Dr. Nordengard's book is superb, and you really should consider getting hold of that. And please do share and let people know about this book, because this book is essentially the antidote. It will help inform people from fully published data and archives and news, real news. It will help inform people why what's happening is happening. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's just a kind of a global power grab, a coup d'etat. It's happening as we speak. We can see it all around us with everything that's going on with our governments and our media. And yet many people just can't quite grasp how there can be a conspiracy of sorts going on at this scale. But with this book, it's all explained, and it's all geopolitics. It's all power play. It's as old as humanity. There's nothing conspiratorial in a sense about it. It's just the way the world works. And from the Roman Empire or Shaka Zulu in Africa, for thousands of years, tens of thousands of years, bad people have increasingly migrated up to the top of the stack, caused absolute disruption, totalitarianism, dystopias, and then the cycle turns around, they're thrown out, and we get good people again, but only for a period till the bad people come back after everyone forgets what happened 50, 60, 80 years ago. So we're in a fork turning, we're in a cycle. It's all to play for. We're on the razor's edge to beat this rap, if you will. But Dr. Nordengard's book, The Global Coup d'etat, is just a key part of making people aware what's actually going on. So thank you.